why does feeling bad actually feel so safe? Just let that sit for a second. It's a total paradox, right? Think about when things go wrong. Maybe you're staring down this deeply intimidating work email that you just really don't want to answer. Or maybe you completely abandoned a fitness goal after literally one bad day. There is this strange, almost magnetic pull to just sit in that negativity. You'd think, naturally, we'd want to escape feeling bad immediately, but sometimes we just set up camp there.
So let's look at the first part of this puzzle, the actual seduction of self-pity. We usually view self-pity as just this involuntary reflex to a bad event, right? Like something bad happens, we naturally feel bad. But consider this definition instead. Think of self-pity as a psychological comfort zone that we use to avoid the discomfort of real change. It's actually structural. It's this active, albeit subconscious choice that we make to shield ourselves from the incredibly hard, deeply uncomfortable work of actually fixing our situation.
Which brings us to the second piece, how we use this to protect our own identity.
See, when we're tucked inside this comfort zone, our perceived reality tells us a very, very convincing story. It tells us that our struggles are entirely the result of external injustices. You know the script. The boss is totally unfair. The economy is just terrible right now. The whole system is rigged. And look, sometimes those external factors are absolutely real. But the actual function of this mindset, it's defensive. By framing our struggles solely as external things happening to us, we successfully bypass the guilt of our own inaction. I mean, if the world is entirely to blame, well, we don't really have to feel bad about staying perfectly still, do we?
So apathy is really operating through these hidden defenses. It frames our struggles as external injustices, and like we said, it bypasses the guilt of doing nothing. But perhaps most profoundly, it helps us avoid the absolutely terrifying possibility of future failure. Think about it. If you try to fix your situation, you might fail. But if you just stay in the self-pity trap, you're already at the bottom. There's literally nowhere left to fall. It offers this twisted, temporary security against the risk that actual hope requires. Moving on to the third concept here, let's talk about the illusion of rest. That defensive shield we just talked about, it feels like a well-deserved break. And I really want to acknowledge right here that the relief you get from just throwing your hands up and giving up, that feeling is absolutely real. But while it does offer this temporary security and relief, this emotional state is deeply deceptive. It actually acts as a barrier to growth by keeping you completely stagnant. It's not a foundation you can build on. Scratch that. It's more like a ceiling, keeping you exactly where you are.
There's a line from the text that perfectly captures this. Self-pity mimics the feeling of rest, but it is merely a form of procrastination. Just let that land for a second. You feel totally exhausted by your circumstances, so you sink into apathy, honestly thinking you're just resting, but you aren't recovering. You are quite literally just procrastinating on your own life.
Okay, so how do we get out? That brings us to part 4, shifting from feeling to doing.
Breaking this cycle actually starts with a step that is surprisingly simple, but honestly, incredibly brave. You just have to acknowledge the avoidance tactic. Look, you don't have to fix your entire life in one Tuesday afternoon. Just look in the mirror and say, I'm using this sadness as a shield. I am avoiding the next step. That simple flash of self-awareness, it shatters the illusion and it allows you to move from passive feeling into active doing.
Because here's the truth. True recovery and genuine healing happen only when we step outside the comfort of despair. We have to be willing to be uncomfortable again, to risk failing all over again. That comfort zone of self-pity feels really safe, for sure, but absolutely nothing grows there. Action, even tiny, messy, imperfect action, is really the only way to genuinely heal. So I'll just leave you with this one question. What is one small step that you can take today to move from passive feeling to active doing? It really doesn't have to be some giant leap. Just one small, active step out of that comfort zone.